Hello, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art. How are you today? I would like, just before I get started, if you are 12 or younger, to please go and seek your parents or guardians and get them watch the video first, please, if you would. And if they say it's okay, it's fine. Having said that, what we're going to go through today, I believe in the end, is nothing but good news, quite frankly, and I mean for all concerned. If we were to look at the image I have on the screen here, which is the top of the pyramid that has all the design work that we've talked at to this point. This inserted image here is a cross-section of the very pyramid we're looking at. This is the top and exterior, and we are told there are casing stones removed. I do not believe so. I believe this is here to give us a very, very good message when the pyramid builders returned, to come and tell us that the top 2% or 3 or 4%, the pyramid structure itself is a representation of the society we live in. The top 2% is missing. The gold cap, the top 2, 3, 4% of human population is going to be removed. They will go through the people on earth that know the lesson. This is indicated by the white part. They will pick the people out of those people, and they will be dealt with by the people that come here that built the pyramid. All of the rest of these people that you see represented will be as such. From here down we see very much order, line, linear. They've lived a life that's pretty good. They're going to get the lesson that this lot had, the one they didn't have, but they still behave themselves. Down here we see a lot of rabble and a mess. It's because it's going to take longer to clean up. Our continents, we are told, from this point, are cut into 3 major big bits and moved. I would see that maybe we could be seeing populations of our own continents move to specific places because of our ability to accept what it is we are learning, whilst it is we're learning it, okay? That's pretty much the case. It's not just a reason of moving mass and land mass away from the equator. I just wanted to put that in just to make you aware that, in my opinion, we're seeing how they're going to divide the populace when they get here. And like I said, they will, providing we make the right moves, they will remove that top bit, which makes the whole task of us doing the rest far easier. Having just left the pyramid view that we just saw, and understand that it would be my belief that the very top of that pyramidal structure of our social fabric of life on our planet is natural fact lied to the very, the 3 or 4% of the top is lied to the very 4 or 5% or and then the 5th and 6% don't quite get to know the whole lot, because that is evident. Mr. Musk, I did put this video or your Starlink satellite system in my last video. It concerns me. I'm not saying to you that you are doing something deceitful, but I'll be honest with you, you are a very wealthy, smart, intelligent person, far smarter than I can tell you. You wouldn't have to leave too far from my house to find a smarter person. But this situation here, if it is in actual fact real, and it's doing what you're doing of 5G satellite communication systems, the further it moves from space out into space, 5G is a far, far weaker signal than lower frequency. Higher frequency doesn't penetrate. That's why you've got all these towers down the streets. And it doesn't take a lot of knowledge to understand that that's the case. So the further that moves from the planet, if in actual fact it is 5G network for communications, well, it's not going to work the further away it goes. If in actual fact it isn't that, and it's a device to create some sort of magnetic flux in space to stop the movements of the planet, it will not work. And that is why I'm going to make the video today. I need to discuss some other planetary motion issues, but that is not going to work if that's what it is. Having said that, Mr. Musk, with all due respect, if I was placed in the same position of understanding the Earth's movement come Christmas this year, I would be as deceitful as I needed to be to make sure every man and woman on the earth's surface would spend their last moments in peace and harmony and so on. However, I made a good video today, and I hope you stay and watch this, sir, because I would have done exactly the same thing. So don't get me wrong, I would have done exactly the same bloody thing. And there were 7 astronauts once upon a time on a craft that went into space. There's 6 of them are still alive. I would expect 7 of them were put back safely on Earth, and 1 of them didn't come out of a briefing room to make the other 6 remain quiet. I've shown you this diagram before, and I wanted to come back here because actually last night I went to bed thinking, am I sure I have this concept of having the 2 rotating vertical planes? This is the horizontal plane of the sun, looking down upon it on our solar system, with our perception of the Earth going around the sun this way. This being Mars, and this being the outer ring of rotation of Earth, because Earth is in actual fact moved between these 2 rings of rotation. I've covered that before. I don't want to go into that too much just at this point. When I went to bed, I thought, well, you know, I'm saying that there's 2 rotating vertical planes that keep the Earth. How is it possible that we can possibly be off the horizontal plane and retain a 24-hour day? That's what I want to explain. When our Earth is off the plane, this horizontal plane I show you here, it has a tilt on the axis. Off the plane, I'll show you another view. So this is the view from the side now, and we're looking at Earth travelling around the sun. It's going in that direction there. It is moving upwards slowly. The plane that it travels on is moving slowly up here, and it is when it hits this horizontal plane of the sun that all these high-speed movements of the Earth itself take place. That is why the pyramids are here. They are not here to tell us these people come back and kill everybody. That is not what this situation is. There would be no reason for me to be doing what I'm doing now, or for me to have become aware of these situations and produced these videos. There is no reason for the pyramids. There would be no reason for the imagery on the rocks. Exquisite imagery. And you know yourselves, the temples that are scattered through the world, they are exquisite. Why would you even bother if in actual fact you're coming back here to rid the Earth of its population? It is pathetically stupid to think that for a second, with their ability and the skills and everything they've left us here to tell us about the planet's motion through the solar system. It is the behaviour of that 2 and 3% at the top of the pyramid that has led to the very process and the reason for the cycles of Earth itself. I wanted to come back to the now top view of the solar system, if you will, looking down upon it, and say to you, we see a spiralling solar system. So in other words, everything's chasing the sun. I don't know whether I really go with that. I would think that in actual fact it's the moving plane of Earth that is in actual fact going like this. It gives us the impression that Earth is chasing the sun, when in reality it isn't. That the plane is shifting. It's coming back up this side here, ready to join the plane here, going round the Earth anti-clockwise. But because we are very close to the horizontal plane, it looks like we're going around the sun, when in reality the plane is being moving, which gives us the impression we're chasing the sun, when in reality we're not. I wanted to put that in because what I went to bed thinking about was how, looking down on a horizontal plane, yes, when we're in the horizontal plane, we have a linear rotation as respect the distance from the sun. We do not get that in the off-plane cycle. This is an elliptic cycle like this. It's in the off-plane cycle where it happens. Why does that happen? If I look at this inserted image now, which is off the glyphs that are in Gosford, I believe it is in actual fact telling not the Earth. It's got nothing to do with the Earth. These are the 2 wide rotating vertical planes of the sun that rotate in a clockwise direction. And you think, well, if they both, how can that possibly be that they both rotate clockwise and the Earth maintain a 24-hour day. If I open up Google Earth for a minute, I'll show you. If we look at Earth using Google Earth and understand that what I've just said is that all of the movement of the magnetic flux of the sun, or the magnetic field of the sun, the two vertical planes, all of them go this way. And you could say, yes, but how does it retain its rotational velocity? Well, that's easy, because it's this way. We go to the poles, looking down upon the Earth now with all the rays going this way, or the magnetic movement going this way. It's moving the Earth this way on that side, and that way on that side. That's why it retains the regular rotation speed that gives us 24 hours. It is in actual fact going into these clockwise rotating beams that slows the planet, not its rotation. The mass of Earth is slowed. So therefore, when we go back to the aerial view and understand, when we look at Earth off plane, it doesn't go like this, it's going outwards, and that's why. So 6 months of the year it's getting sped up, 6 months of the year it's getting slowed down, 6 months of the year it's getting sped up, 6 months it's getting slowed down. The distance that it goes out here between the sun's closest and the sun's furthest point is very, very important to know. I'll bring you back to the megalith we discussed last week and said that in actual fact this reflected the movement of Earth exactly as displayed in the pyramids, that it does the same as the Serapeum in that it shows the movement, very, very fast movement upwards. Somebody sent me an image the other day. Before I go on, I'll just say that this is actually showing us the actual model, a scale model, a megalith left here in China that shows us the scale model of the Earth itself. Shows you the 30 minutes that it takes the Earth to go upwards like that. At 4,000 miles it travels. In the last 4 minutes here, this line of longitude is moved 8,000 miles to there in 4 minutes. And the same thrust that we're seeing here in 30 minutes over here is the same thrust in 4 minutes. Somebody sent me an image of this the other day. There are 4 steps in the end of this wall here. It's 4 steps to say it's the same 4 minutes. So it will not be wrong. It is giving us the rotational speed at the last 4 minutes here at 120,000 miles an hour. The thrust upwards, shown by the 30 minutes, and the thrust there for the 4 minutes, is a speed of 60,000 miles an hour, straight up like this. The satellite system that we're putting around the planet, if in actual fact it was, the initial speeds are that fast, they would crash into the Earth's surface and be left way below the Earth in this motion. It just isn't going to happen. It's that fast. You're saying, oh, we're going to put them out further than here. To get them out far enough for the effect to have to take place, they have to be beyond the North Pole by the width of the Earth and still maintain an orbit. It's impossible. They've designed the system. You will not fudge it, not without technology. That is why it's designed that way. The orbit of the satellite system, if in actual fact it's there to create a magnetic field, will never ever be a situation where it has to extend beyond 8,000 kilometres all around the Earth. We have not got the technology. One more thing I wanted to mention before I moved away from this. We are being told now that we've got a thrust upwards of 60,000 miles an hour. We're seeing multiple impacts here happen around here. These are coming down at the top of the North Pole like this as it's coming up to try and stop this happening. If it didn't happen, it isn't just the oceans of the Earth that I believe we are seeing here. I believe we're being told. I will show you the image of the impact that tilted the Earth. I've brought you back now to the actual incident itself. This is the bottom of South America. It is the incident that tilted the axis of Earth 6,000 years ago. We could dispute that fact, but really you've been bombing this thing with atomic weaponry for I mean, it's not you guys. We're here and we're now, so we've got to deal with what we've got on our plate. So I'm going to move on. I want you to look at this. Really, really look at what you're seeing with the structure of Earth here. Look at it. It is way, way, way. This is way, way, way down away from the mass of Earth. The mass of Earth here in a spinning mass is the equator. Look at the damage it does. It's massive. Now I want you to stop and ponder what I've just said. That they say the Earth is doing 60,000 miles an hour and it goes bang. If they didn't hit the top of it with those comets as just displayed around that image, I'm absolutely certain that they're saying that type of thing without the mass of Earth, this just moved the planet straight up when this happened, 100 miles as far as it could go. I'll show you why in a minute. But that is massive. I'm of the belief they've never ever let it run through, ever. Because in actual fact, that is telling us if they did, and they never slowed the process, it wouldn't just lose the water, that the thrust upwards at 60,000 miles an hour, the entire mass of Earth, with nowhere to go, actually blows the planet up totally. It's never ever gone the whole way without the comet slowing it down. Otherwise the Earth itself would be a massive rock scattered throughout the solar system. I have shown you this plate here before as well, and as we've already spoken of, that it was in actual fact showing us the two rings of rotation of Earth as well. The inner ring, which is 93 million miles, the one we are on at present, coming back up to join the horizontal plane on this ring of rotation, that this is the outer ring of rotation of Mars. And if I zoom in a little, this was, by the way, this was Mystery History Channel. That's where it supplied this documentary. I freeze framed this off. I wanted to show you here that when you go in close, you can see that these rotate in an opposite direction. That's because between each one of those, they're talking about Earth, the axis of Earth, spinning like this, clockwise or anti-clockwise on its axis. It is changed when the planet is moved in from the outer ring to the inner ring. I will go back and cover something about that in a minute, about that sequence, because in my last video I put something in there that was incorrect. I just at this point don't want to discuss that, nor do I want to go away from where I am. So I want you to realise that what we're seeing here, and we have already discussed, that the periods of time here are set out in parchments that we've already looked at. I will insert one here. There are 22 men on each line, telling us there are 44,000 years of cycle within each ring of rotation. Therefore it is 88,000 years between each change on that. And if you add them all up, in actual fact tells you how long the cycles have existed for, and it equates roughly to what I can count to be about 16 million years that this situation has happened. But I said at the time that I thought that would be the case, that I don't know how many of these plates they are. There's something else I saw, another plate very similar to this in a documentary the other day that had an additional insertion in the middle of the plate. Before I move on, I wanted to show you this. I've got another plate to show you, but I wanted to come back here because it's important to understand that what my thinking was at the time, and I made a mistake. I've always thought that this horizontal plane of the sun was very narrow because of the initial movement. If I circle this bit and insert it for you in the Serapeum, it shows the initial thrust of the impact that I showed you at the bottom, South America, only drove the planet up 100 kilometres like that. It couldn't go any further. And I've always, at that point, thought this was very narrow for its entirety, where in reality, because of the Earth being shifted so fast as we've seen with the Chinese megalith, that we realise that it's more like donut shaped. And that I said, well, what we're coming into here is we're coming into click in here and go straight up. And our plane then of the equatorial plane of Earth is in line with the horizontal plane of the sun, and that is where it is. And we move the moon in and out and in and out because this was very narrow. Well, it is, But obviously if it was going like this, it's not that narrow. So this isn't quite the case. Mostly the reason why I wanted to discuss this is the following plate, because it made me understand what's going down a little better. This once again was a freeze frame off a mystery history documentary again on YouTube. It's a great channel, that seriously I would recommend looking at it. I suspect this is a different plate. So we're now looking at possibly another 15 million years here, because there's 88,000 years between each one of these. There's a significant difference, isn't there? The other one hasn't got it in there. What we're looking at here on this one is our cycles, where the moon has moved further in, stepped in and out to create the seasons, because our Earth is straight. We are told that that's how we get summer, winter and spring. That the moon is indicated here, that when you wake up it's on that side of the Earth, and when you go to bed it's on that side of the Earth, right? That's what this is doing here. It's letting us know the cycles of the moon in and out towards the sun and back to create what is summer, winter, spring and autumn, because you do not have that situation with Earth in a straight axis. However, there are many things that you've got to take into account. We've discussed many already about the movement of land away from the equator. I want to discuss another reason for that shortly. This is telling us that there are times and there are cycles here between a plate and the other where this is not necessary. What is the difference? Because they're still going clockwise and anti-clockwise on the axis. The cycle therefore is still the same. The shifting and movement between inner and outer plane is the same. Why have we got a plate that has the use of the moon to provide the seasons and one that doesn't? Because we're still talking about cycles here on the plane, on the horizontal plane of the sun. How can you do that? It means that you have to have the ability to travel within the horizontal plane with a tilt on the axis. And I'll show you how I believe that is done. I now have made a slight modification to my donut field diagram. The sun's horizontal beam. I had the planet drawn this big when in reality it's probably more like this, which is why the planet is grabbed by one of these and hurled into this portion here, because of the skew on the axis. Here it sits flat with the Earth's equatorial plane here. I believe what we're seeing in the plates, when we're sitting in here, the moon is moved in and out towards the Earth for more than one reason. Ponder, if you will, a straight axis with the moon moving in and out. It is providing the seasons, but we're all having the same one at the same time. Therefore, if there was ice and snow developing on the peaks and heights of the Earth's surface in this process, there is no the melt from winter ice. There is not a thaw in one pole while you have a freeze in the other. Therefore, and I'm not necessarily talking about just polar ice here, I'm talking about wherever else on the globe we're getting ice and snow build up of winter. It's all going to melt at the same time here. We would have floods every year. The oceans would rise. There would not be a variation in the ocean level here. This is what they're telling us. The moon is made function here. The moon's movement in and out is not just doing that with the planet. It's not just supplying the seasons. It is in actual fact being used as a pump to move water in and out of the planet in what is a reservoir. Not just the one that cycles around the core and mimics a lesser mass of the planet, but in actual fact another storage where in actual fact they use it to pump the water. So in other words, they'll pump it out of a storage area and pump it back in. Pump it out and pump it in. How? By the very movement of the moon itself. And that the movement in and out like this, is what drives the water through the centre of the planet to pump it. And that's why they bleed off, where we've spoken of before, that the water core, or the water spinning around the core, is how they do that. But I want you to look at another initiative and another hypothesis with that plate. When we see the moon not be used, how can it be that the moon cannot be moved if the axis is straight? The answer, there is a place and a position on the horizontal plane and a manner in which you can use it with a tilt on the axis and not have to use the horizontal plane. Problem is, we're being told there are reproduction issues written all through the cycle. Probably the reason they had to leave in the first place. It's like this, so we can't leave. You do not leave Earth without the teachings and understanding of far more than we learn at our schools and universities now. And that is what I believe we're seeing. I want to show you another diagram now. When we then stop then and think, well, what's going down here? We are allowed to have an axial tilt. Do they balance the globe? Possibly. The moon is going to be used to run the tides here, and therefore doesn't need to be the case. But we're sitting here in two fields now, a horizontal field where we're not here. If we sit here, the only place that the horizontal field is, the sun, is very narrow, as on the equatorial areas. And that's what I think we are being told here. That when we have a concentrated equatorial area of the magnetism on the horizontal plane, that makes very, very, very big issues with genetics in respect to human reproduction. And in that cycle, if there is landmass near the equator, that's where we're getting giants. The mythical giants are created right in this point here, I would expect, which is why the other reason they move the landmass away from the equatorial region is to make sure no humans are born on the equatorial regions of Earth, because they would in actual fact be genetic mutations that would create giants that are not created in that arena. That is what I believe we are seeing. But we are also seeing people here that are now sitting here with two rotating vertical planes. Once again, a different type of human is being bred in here. I would expect there must be other places within the galaxy that are populated with humans that exist within different realms. What I wanted to show you here is the image here. I will let you know that this is latest Planet X detection from Pittsburgh. I wanted to put this up here, honestly. I'm trying to save quite a few lives here and make people aware of what's going to go down. And I do realise it does say copyright Planet X News there, but I don't make any money on my channel. It's just here for people to be aware of what's going to go down before Christmas. Certainly there's going to be a lot more go down before Christmas. A month or two away, some major things are going to occur. I wanted to come back here because I've discussed with you the use of the moon in a period of time at Christmas time. So in other words, the moon would be moved to shield the Earth. Well, that was great theory when it was. I thought a narrow band of horizontal magnetism was narrow, but as we've seen, it is vast and extends way beyond the planet's surface. This is how they get around that problem. This is being moved into the solar system, it would appear, behind the sun. There are many images you will see that are not quite the same. They are photographs that show you what looks like two suns or another planet between here and the sun. They are not what they seem. I would expect they are light getting bent or magnification of one of the inner planets, because if in actual fact it was there, you would see it everywhere. This, if we could look at the sun, you would see it everywhere. It is in actual fact something that's going to be used for a period of time. I will show you why. I've shown you this crop circle of England before as well, or in England I should say, and said that it was relative to the moon cycle. In other words, that the 5 months the moon is moved, the 5 months of movement of the moon, 1 month, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, every 5th month. That is when women on planet Earth will be able to ovulate. It is only on that month there. When we go through a situation here, the moon is not big enough to do this, is it? If we want to shield out here, yeah, we can shield once we get in and once we come onto the plane and our axis is straight, we can then shield the axis of Earth with the moon by such a process, but you cannot shield the entire planet plus another length up here and up here with the initial crossing. That is why I wanted to show you that last image. What we're seeing here is in actual fact what we're going to see. They're going to place that orbiting object that you see just near the sun that I've showed you. They're going to place it in front of the sun like this. We will have a ring of fire that will move across like this for 5 days at this point. That's what I believe we are going to see happen. Because when we come into that plane, we cannot allow, and they've got to get us to that one. We are one of the ones that's getting created, or a race of humans that are capable of doing, as I've said, that they are going to be born with a straight axis like this, and with 1 or 2 rotating vertical planes affecting both top and bottom, but the equatorial areas will be free of people. There will not be people living there. I would expect there is some sort of mutation in that field that causes, as I've said, giants. But I would expect that body we've just looked at will be moved on to one of the inner rings of rotation, which once again is why we see on that second plate a 4th ring of rotation. What we're looking at is the 5 days of Christmas, so the 25th through the 29th, it would appear that's going to happen. And we will have a ring of fire, we will have a white Christmas everywhere across the earth, and then on the 5th day, or the 7th day, one would say the 6th day, that will be moved away. The moon will be in here, close to the earth, and we will rise to our first summer on our new earth. Isn't that amazing? What a thing to have to go through the process of learning. What an unreal year and a half, I tell you. But the most amazing thing with what we've discussed today already is the planet has never, ever, ever gone up, because it wouldn't be here, number 1. Number 2, we have now seen that there are multiple cycles here, without doubt, that produce humans that are being moved from our Earth to other worlds. That is also amazing, because the existence of the 2 multiple planes and the placement of Earth is amazing. That is exactly what's going down here, which is great, because it means I'm really, really certain now when I say to you, they're not going to kill you. We see, I'll go back to the nations of the earth. So when we come back and look at our globe, and take Africa for example, they're going to cut across here. It's where the equator is. They're going to move that down. They're moving land mass away from the equator, so there's no people breeding on the equator. I think that's why we saw so much land mass move away from the equator here, above Australia, with all these events here. This is the problem. So much of the cycle contains phrases, if you call it that. We have these phrases in society like hell on earth. There are so many things like that, even Bible quotes and religious quotes. That I was raised a Christian myself. I do not go to church, but I don't sit down and kneel and pray to God. I talk to Him daily and have for a long, long, long time. I just don't go to church. My God to me is the power of the universe and everything in it and whatever, the things we don't understand. We can't understand how our Earth rotates around the sun properly, let alone how and what and everything that God is. All I know is He makes the people The people that come back and do this are our ancestors, and I have said that I would expect planet Earth here has been the purpose of many, many, many races of people over the many millions of years. We are seeing our landmass. If I go to Australia, we are told we're going to be cut across here or thereabouts, and another one from about here to here. So we're looking at 3 major continental moves of our continent. We look at Michelangelo's A Picture of the Last Supper. There are 3 doors behind it. Somebody asked me, why are there 3 doors behind this picture? They posted it on one of the groups I'm a member of. I put mine in as saying, in my religion there is heaven, purgatory and hell. And we hear this thing called hell on earth. Look, I'll be honest with you guys that are not really, that they're not happy with. There's going to be a fair few go away. But I would expect that there's going to be a bit of separation of our population here over time, and an ability to be able to educate people in a way. I don't know, I could be totally wrong. I just see that, and I see an ability where the worst of the worst are probably put on a place that's left. You know, they might chop here, chop there, but the fact that we've got most of this up here full of crocodiles, and we know we've seen cuts to the landmass here, maybe what they're doing is they might cut these bits out here. We have the same thing in Africa. Where they are going to do it is where it's not a very habitable place, in that you've got waters full of crocodiles. I have a feeling the worst of the worst that have thought it right, they're giving you one chance. That's what I'm saying. They're going to put you on a part where the dinosaurs aren't extinct. They bring them back and put them on an island here and say, which is why we have Jurassic Park. It's because that's actually what's going to happen. They don't want that to happen for you guys. They want you to have what you haven't had to this point. The bravery to step up and bloody get your guts, man. Get some balls, man. How long ago did I tell you? You must have had to have balls to live in Australia. How unusual that we're here now talking exactly that. Listen, we want as less people on that as possible. You guys do too. They understand, and I do too. Listen, I had to have a discussion with my son only a couple of days ago. And he, as I do sometimes, wake and wish you all dead. But in reality, I had to sit down and say, listen, son, there are children that are 8 and 9 that could be buried in a backyard alive for 2 days, and then they take them out 2 days later. And these are the sort of the things that the young children have had to go through to have split personalities. We must understand that aspect. We do not get raised with that type of environment, and what that does to the human psyche is absolutely detrimental to human life. And I would say that is why. So they're asking you now, get the bravery now, because they don't want to put you on an island like that full of dinosaurs. But you will meet your path that way if you haven't got the guts to stand up now in a world as modern as ours. And you still won't have the courage to stand up and protect the very thing that is us, our youth. That you're going to end up on a bit like that with a shitload of dinosaurs and that bloody knife that you carve those kids up with. That's what's going to happen. They don't want to kill you. Get some balls, otherwise that's the outcome. I've just zoomed in very, very quickly here to the end of that, what I call the donut field of magnetism of the sun. If we sit within the middle here, right in the middle, we must then say to ourselves, well, we don't actually want the planet to meet this point, nor do we want it to lag to ever meet this point, because any time the planet touches either, it would be, I would imagine, flicked in either direction. I would therefore see that the movement of the moon and the water through the planet here, because you, like I said, you cannot have any varying rotation. Speed of rotation is this way here, right? But you can't have any movement this way. It'd be the same if the planet was sitting in here. you couldn't afford to have it move. So I would expect the very process here might be locked in, this may not, but I would expect there, with the melting snows, varying water rates, is why it's got to be so accurate, because you cannot allow any movement of the planet here within that field, I would expect. So there might be, I could be wrong there, but I think that there's probably a situation where the water is very, very accurately used for the position within those two fields to make sure it doesn't move either way. I've shown you this image before as well. I do not want to come back and spend too long here, but we were looking at this being a cave painting, and I'm saying it's a lot more than that. It's a very, very, very informative illustration of the Earth's rotation and management and movement in from the outer ring. I will just move the image just a tad this way so you can see that these sort of resemble, once again, the light bulbs we see with this inserted image I'll put in shortly, and the hand here lifting the globe we see at the temple at Luxor, I think, in Egypt, which is this inserted image, or Dandara, the Dandara lights I think they're called. On this side I wanted to show you that this is where we're being shown in detail how the planet is moved in. This is why I wanted to come back here, because I wanted to explain the 4,000 year cycle and I was incorrect. I just wanted to show you that this is where the planet is repetitively hit. This is the inner ring of rotation. This is the outer ring of rotation beyond Mars. Mars' ring of rotation is approximately here. What I want you to see here is the gap between these widening, but then they go short again. This is beyond Mars here. This is the last ring of rotation, or our other ring of rotation is here. This is our other one. Between there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6,000 years. But look where they are in respect to each other. This might look crude, this diagram, but it will be extremely accurate. I believe what they're showing us in the extremity here on the outer ring, in the lessening of the gap here when it was expanding, is that an outer planet now, one of the other outer planets, has got taking more control of the Earth's rotation in this area of space. Whereas within here, the Sun has far more control over the mass of Earth. That's why that's like that. One other reason I wanted to come back here was to make you aware that we're looking at 3 impacts. It's because in the time, at the point when I told you this was laid over, I will explain with my globe and also the aid of looking down upon the solar system like this again. What we're looking at is us being knocked in from the outer ring this way. So we're looking down upon the solar system. The planet is in the outer ring. We go for 2,000 years before our incident where we're knocked here. Right, but what's happening here with the dots that are in the cave are stops. In other words, the planet stops moving. They actually do have to hit it again. I want you to note that the first 2 lots have got 3 circles or 3 dots. It means that they're having to skew the axis to get it through, once again, those very, very narrow portions of the Sun's horizontal plane again, like this. The rings of travel and rotation are more than the ones we see here. It's just the off-plane cycle that we get here, a 24-hour day, is within here. It can be managed on the plane to give us the 21 and 27-hour days, depending on which way the Earth is rotating the Sun, because it can go that way and give us a 21-hour day, or this way and give us a 27-hour day with their management. We've gone through all that. I wanted to let you know that what we're doing here, when you see those 3 impacts, is the Earth is being laid flat in a different manner than I told you. I said it was laid flat this way, so if I was looking at that diagram and the Earth is coming around on the outer ring like this, standing up, it will be straight like this. Its axis will be absolutely straight, it'll be on the horizontal plane. And I said to you that it laid that way, and that way was how they flipped it up here in the first 2,000 years. That's actually incorrect. I'll show you what they did. If I went back to the diagram that shows us the shift of the plane of the cycle we've just finished. If I bring you back to this diagram of the gyroscope and see that it's probably the easiest way to explain the motion of Earth of the cycle we've just finished. We were 6,000 years ago coming around the Sun in this direction. The impact that knocked our plane of rotation of the Sun has happened here, but it's pivoted here. Okay, so in other words, what's happened is this plane of rotation has shifted 180 degrees. We are actually coming up to this point here. We're going around the Sun this way now, because that's what this process does. It changes the direction of rotation of Earth around the Sun. When we get over to this side, we're going around the Sun this way. Our plane is gradually drifting up here, and it is when we get to this point here that the skew is no longer on the axis and all these really, really fast motions take place. The reason I wanted to come back here is the 4,000 year cycle is not done the way I said. This cycle, when the Earth is laid in this cycle, when the Earth is removed from the horizontal plane over here, the situation is that it's pushed out with a 24 degrees tilt, but the North Pole through the entire cycle here does not change. When it's up here and when the Earth is here, it is like that. It still has a tilt on the axis, but North Pole always points north. I wanted to let you know that because the 4,000 year cycle is not that. God forbid the comets that we see on the way to Earth now actually hit it. We will have a look at this inserted image that there's stacks of human walls there, in actual fact therefore to tell us how the direction of the comets that tilted the axis. That's why they're actually on the wall, on the very line of this incident here. That's why they're there. They are the tracking walls for the comets that tilted the axis and gave us our current situation. I'm sorry, excuse me, standing in front here, and as you can see I'm casually dressed as usual when I'm doing these things. I want you to imagine that, as we were saying, the Earth is coming around here, going around the Sun in the right direction, anti-clockwise, which is what we're doing. The horizontal plane is anti-clockwise in its rotation. The two vertical planes, if we're looking at this now being one of the vertical planes of the Sun, there is another one that runs at 90 degrees. It also rotate. They both go in a clockwise direction. The horizontal plane, if we're going to look at this being the horizontal plane, would be going that way. Earth's plane of rotation, we will say, is this one. If we then say, listen, I'm going to say that the comets hit us. 4,000 year cycle that starts here is the very same as the 4,000 year cycle that comes in. There is no difference. It is further out, and you could say, how could it start out here and still take 4,000 years to complete the cycle? It's because it's laying like this. They don't tip it towards the Sun, they tip it in the path and the way of travel along that way. What happens then, once it happens, if I cause this event here and the Earth is here, it is still pivoted from here. I cause the event from here. The Earth still keeps moving around the Sun, but laid down like that. It initiates the very centre of the cycle that we have finished at the very start by doing so. The North Pole still remains always pointing that way. There must be obviously other reasons for that to be the case. That is what they say. It retains its 24-hour a day, even in that field, because you still have the other way, they're rotating this way, you still have the same thing. It's rotating this way, so half of it's hitting here and half of it's hitting here. So you still retain a 24-hour day when it is laid flat that way. I just wanted to come back to this image, which is the top view of the solar system, and explain to you that what we're being told from the outer ring to go back into the inner ring, that the 4,000-year off-plane cycle happens here, and that when we're moving from the inner ring to the outer ring, it is the 3,000-year cycle that is used to jump the ring of rotation of Mars. I wanted to explain the difference between one and the other. It's not a megalith, this is a stonework done. It's actually in the Peruvian highlands, or like I said, it's only a couple of metres high. It's on the same line of longitude that was tilted, but for the very same reason. And I explained this incorrectly. I said that the difference between this is a 3,000-year cycle. It's saying, I've got 3,000-year cycle that way, a 3,000-year cycle this way. I said that the skewed angle here is the case. Where this differs, this is going out. And where we are seeing a different way the planet is tilted, I will show you how the planet is tipped to do this cycle. But what I want you to note that it is initiated here. So in other words, what we're seeing is the plane of rotation of Earth is around the Sun is like this. But what we're doing is we're lifting the plane and moving it from the point of impact. It's different. The other one is 90 degrees out here. But what I explained here is this just went over, it doesn't. What happens is it takes 1,500 years for the plane of rotation here to lift up to this height, right? From this angle, from this being the horizontal plane, that the plane of rotation lifts up like this, but the two rotating vertical planes drive this plane of rotation back down again. That's what happens in that cycle. I'll show you the reason why that happens once we go back to our other image. To finish up now, I'll just show you what I believe with the 3,000-year cycle. Like I said, it happens on the way out here. The difference between that and the 4,000-year cycle that is initiated here and moved back in here is that in this instance, the Earth's axis is laid flat this way, which is why we're having to skew. If I do a little inserted image here of a close-up, you see you've got 3 comets tilting us every time. It's because the axis is being tilted here. It moves us through the very narrow band of the horizontal plane. Otherwise, that's why it would stop. That's why you're seeing it repetitively done. As it goes through here, it would stop on the horizontal plane. So it needs the tilt on the axis. But the planet is laid flat this way. Out here, when it's going out, it isn't. It's laid flat that way. And the pole is pointing out this way. Whereas this one, the pole is pointing this way. That's the difference. When we look at this inserted glyph, which is on the walls in Gosford at Carry on the New South Wales Central Coast, if you are an astrologist or an astrophysicist, and you wanted to know how wide the vertical rotating planes, clockwise rotating planes of the Sun are, that image is where you're getting the ratio. The crisscross there is not where you drop atomic bombs on the Earth to try and tilt the axis, because that's what you boys have been thinking that means. It is obvious just purely where the bombs have landed. That is telling you the width of the rotating vertical planes of the Sun that rotate in a clockwise direction. That is where you get the width. The height of the inserted image here, where I've drawn this. I've said in this little diagram here that they're roughly 8,000 kilometres, but that is not the case. The only thing that's making our planet get grabbed here is the skew on the axis in relation to the Sun is what makes it get picked up. So in reality, we're at 8,000 because that is where we are when the skew is right. It could mean 16,000 or 32,000. I do not know. There are aspects I do not know. When you're modelling that you do when you run the processes of movement that we've discussed through the modelling systems, you will probably find what I'm saying here is correct. I just wanted to put that in, but I've come back to this image now because there is a very, very important message here, and it's where we are seeing this cycle start. This is where I say we are laid flat. When I come back to this image and look at what we're seeing here, we are seeing Asian people be put back on here. It's a very, very, very important message here. Very important. We're getting put on, but we're getting past 1,000 years away, or 600 years, 700 years past the start of this point where we're actually beginning to have some of the earth in here that's livable, because honestly there and there, just like the middle of our own, I'm telling you, cannot have a civilization here. I don't know why we seem to have had a history built, told, certainly built and left. The pyramids and all such things, how can the people live there? They've got 3 months of dark, 3 months of continuous sun. How the hell is anything going to grow? It's a really, really, really difficult time to live on Earth 3,000 years ago. We see these people being put back on here. We're seeing the Asians and the Egyptians being put back on the planet here. That the moon is with Earth here. The moon has come back in with Earth. Why? Why are we seeing this and this when the moon is here? Remember that we have cycles with breeding. I'll show you something. When we look at this inserted image, which was the Egyptian parchment, or it's in actual fact it's a copy of a carving, I believe, or a relief, Egyptian relief. It's in actual fact telling us there are issues with the Egyptian race, because in actual fact it's Egyptian for starters, and we've got the Egyptians here with the moon being used in this cycle. We know the moon is there. That's why the hat that refers to that cycle has got a brim on it. The moon is here. We're getting the coverage here of the moon in the cycle. This is off plane, and we're being told here that there's people that cannot breed. In the cycle we're going through now, not cannot breed, but in actual fact this issue with the moon being moved in towards the sun and back out, I would expect that we are being told here affects the Asian people and the Egyptian people or Middle Eastern people. That's what I believe we're getting told here, that these sequences of where we are here is, it, like I said, yet again, we are seeing a make-up of people from 3 worlds. In the initial instance it's happened, that we were all put on one planet, but we did not evolve within the solar system here, with all of us in the same criteria here. When I was a kid at school, the Chinese people were 900 million. It was in actual fact 1/3 of the population. It wasn't the Asians, it was the Chinese. So maybe here where we are saying, well, some of the Asian races, well, some were on the planet with the moon and some were not. Some were on the other planet, you know, or the other planets. So this is why I'm saying I believe that what we're seeing here, that this is very, very specific here. But this is Chinese people, I believe, that you are the ones that are going to have an issue. I see with the Egyptians coming on later that they have the problem, but it's not quite as bad. The inserted glyph that I show you now, just above that, is this one. And when we look at what we've learned, we know we have downward and upward cycles. I'm not an Egyptologist, but I can tell you I know exactly what both of those mean. And I will be 100% correct in the meaning of both of them. What we're seeing here is the illustration of a 6,000 with a 4,000 year cycle after it. That's why you're seeing the loop down, which is the 6,000. They are always 6 when they move away from the plane in a downward direction. The 3 and 4,000 year cycles always start with the plane being moved in an upward direction. This I put in here because it shows us the curvature of the Earth here, an impact of the North Pole with a big comet, and that is how they initiate a 4,000 year cycle. It may have been left to last, but it is the most equally important part. That 4,000 year cycle is initiated with the Earth being laid this way. In 3 months, the North Pole is in complete darkness for 3 months. straight away. It gets laid this way. We know what it does. It puts the South Pole in complete sunlight this summer. Within March next year, it is in full sun. That's whoever lives. And I would expect there's not that many live through that impact in the North Pole. And that movement here that puts him in the darkness all the way to the equator, because there will be no wobble on the axis here. You can be betting your life on that. There will be nowhere to stand on this planet. Full dark in the northern hemisphere, full sun on the southern hemisphere is not the way to go. This inserted image, yet again we see the same thing. It's why the Asians didn't get put back on for 1,000 years. Why? Because they would have died. You do not live through that, let alone the comet tilting the planet to put it there. That is also another option we are being shown. I would prefer to go straight the easy way. They've told us how they do it. Understand the differences between one and the other, because one of them we meet our makers naturally, the other one we meet them in time. The natural meeting is Christmas, and it's meeting our makers, all of us. Except the ones they rip off that planet they're worthy of taking. Or we meet our maker with their knowledge and pass away the way we're supposed to, which is why they've left it the way they have, gentlemen. Wake up. I wanted to finish up today, and I'll just, this image that you're seeing here is an actual fact rock that I have, that I show the light from the side, and like I said, it shows many different things. The skills in the building of such, it is unbelievable, honestly. I've sat here at times and watched some of the imagery come up on these rocks, and I've just gone, wow, it is the skills in the manufacture of such a thing is really unbelievable. I will say one thing, listen, it is obvious, in my opinion, with the repetitious building the temples all over the world and such things, that we are, as much as I say these things, I'm not saying that they're not going to deal with you, but I would, like I said, you look at the top of that pyramid, it says we're going to take the top 2%. We will go through the next lot and take these people. What they're saying, they to me are saying, listen, you've got to have the courage. They will put more people on, if it is the situation where it's on Earth, hell on Earth, or a part of Earth that has dinosaurs on it or whatever. I'm absolutely certain that you have to show courage now. I don't think, from what I'm seeing, I am seeing we're doing this. This is written in the top of the pyramid here. This is what we're going to do. That's what that means to me. Well, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. When you see how exquisite, this is on our rocks, look at it, it's amazing. UFOs flying around the world, up and down valleys. This is what you're seeing here. It's amazing, honestly. I've sat here and been absolutely blown away to a degree of, it's hard to explain, but having said that, we've not only come to the realization that this sort of imagery is on the rocks, but we've also, it is the very thing that has driven me to resolve, if we have in actual fact resolve any issues, I do not know. I hope that there are planetary scientists and astrophysicists finding what I'm actually putting in this video useful. I would certainly hope that is the case. And we certainly need to be running the motions that I've spoken of through a modelling system without doubt, because your days of getting the courage to step forward are very quickly running out. I wanted to show you this. I will insert this one image here. It is, once again, it says 17. It never ever said 17. It was in this image here, the very same rock at the very same place, says 4 in Roman numerals. It is obviously the same rock. From the light angle that we're doing, like this sort of thing that we're seeing here, now if I do the light angle on that other rock in the same place, we see this. They are saying on the 1st of the 7th this year, which coincides exactly with this inserted image here of the 6 months or 9 months that we're supposed to have. We are only 8 months left now. There are 6 months. They are saying on the 1st of the 7th, they are coming to put Atlantis, move the land masses. Now, that may sound like a daunting thing. They are saying they know how to do it. Honestly, if they can push our planet out beyond Mars and back, they are us. They are people like us, you and I. That is who is here. That's who's coming. And the people on our planet that were permitted to evolve beyond in other worlds, that is who we are seeing. They can float our land masses, cutting up of the continents, as though it may seem like a bad idea. It's not. It's giving us way, way, way more coastline, which would absolutely make the requirement. It would open up more ports. It would create more fishing areas, more fisheries. We would have abundance of fish, more places to fish, and all such things. More harbours, more access to what was now inaccessible inland masses, wasted territory. Then it's not that anymore. It's totally different. That is a very, very promising thing to look forward to as well. I urge each and every one of you that are on the other side of the fence, I say this, we don't really, surely you guys want to know the answers, man. Even the ones you thought you knew, you don't know them all. And I can tell you from the people that have left this message here, the 36 million years we're looking at now, or beyond 30 million years with the 2 plates that we've already looked at, do you know what I see in that 30 million years? I see, with all the looking for the answers, all the way through the galaxies that they've gone, I'll be honest with you, I still think they've got an answer to a question we've got now still. And they don't know the answer to it. That's what I actually believe. I believe that they are saying God exists. There is something beyond, way, way, way more. Even with what they can do. They can probably build the sun. They can probably build the earth. That's how good they have got. Their intelligence is beyond our imagination. But that is how good they are. Yet, within their message, they still, to me, seem to say, listen, for all the looking, that is one question we've not been able to answer ourselves yet. And I believe that that is in actual fact the case. This is an amazing piece of rock here. This in actual fact turns around to be a city here. There's actually devices built in underneath the ocean here telling us that we need to have, in instances, things under the ocean. Maybe they're already there. Like I said, there's a lot of infrastructure within the planet that we are unaware of, and it's at great depth. Certainly at a depth we do not have the technology to get to, just like we do not have the technology to stop our planet being ripped up. We do not have it, lads. We've only got one choice here. And let's find out what it is together. Let's find the answers out. The thing that's difficult when we look at this inserted image yet again of the rabble at the bottom of the pyramid, you boys at the top probably think it's us. We're the rabble. Well, no, I've had a collared shirt on in jobs as well. Listen, with the religions that you've taught us all, I'll be honest with you, we're all a little bit right and we're all a little bit wrong. And the understanding that we're all a little bit right and we're all a little bit wrong will go a long, long way. I think we'll finish off there today. This is Brian Whitten and ET Art. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope it's been of use to certainly some people out there. But we need to make some right decisions, and you, Sir Mr. Musk, if in actual fact your device is an attempt to try and stop the ripping of our planet and moving up, it will not work, sir. We really only have one choice here. Let's find out the truth of mankind. A far better option. Have a nice day. Thanks very much. Bye bye.